From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Hey, do you guys remember Adam Carolla? Adam Carolla is known for two things. If you don't know him at all, I don't blame you. He's kind of a D-list celebrity in my book. He's known for The Man Show, which was a Comedy Central variety show way back in the 90s, I guess. And it was politically incorrect, and it was sexist and misogynistic, but in a parody kind of way. At least that's what they claimed. Jimmy Kimmel was the co-host. That's the first we all saw of Jimmy Kimmel. So Adam Carolla, Jimmy Kimmel, The Man Show. Supposedly this tongue-in-cheek satire of toxic masculinity. But... and it was funny. I mean, they had good writers. As far as whether or not they succeeded in maintaining satire and not slipping over into actual misogyny, there's a lot of question about that, at least in my own mind. Well, the other thing you might know him for, something else he needed a partner for. The only two things he's known for, he's had a partner. He hasn't been able to hold something on his own. He's known for something called, and I have to look it up. Let's see. I want to say Loveline. Is that right? Let me see here. Adam Carolla, co-host Drew Pinsky. Yeah, Loveline. It was a radio show that I only caught if I happened to be in the car late at night and I was tuning around. So I heard a little bit of it. It was like relationship advice and sex talk. Drew Pinsky's a doctor, supposedly, allegedly. Well, I bring all this up because Adam Carolla is a questionable star, to say the least. And there's this big headline on Fox Business I saw. Comedian Adam Carolla, blacklisted by Hollywood, says it's a small price to pay for free speech. Comedian and actor Adam Carolla says he won't be starring in sitcoms anytime soon after facing calls to be canceled over jokes and creative content causing him to be blacklisted by Hollywood. You know what, Adam? You're not starring in sitcoms for the same reason I'm not starring in sitcoms. We don't have the talent to do that. Quote, well, I don't get a lot of Hollywood roles. I don't get my documentaries into Sundance, but it's kind of a small price to pay to say what I want to say. Carolla told Fox Business Stuart Varney. Oh, yeah, he's talking with Stuart Varney. Carolla joins the growing list of comedians who are speaking out against cancel culture, including Tim Allen, who tweeted over the weekend, wonder if government agents will be policing comedy from the back of the house. Ay. I just found this kind of hilarious. Adam Carolla is a relatively talented comedian. I've seen him on the two shows I mentioned. I've seen him on a couple of Comedy Central roasts. Yeah, I guess he gets it done. But he hasn't got much talent, really. He's not easy on the eyes. He's not charismatic. He's not charming. He's not witty. He's not really all that funny. He's just this kind of D-list, or if you want to be generous, C-list celebrity who's been fortunate enough to make a living trying to be funny. And I guess enough people have found him funny that he can pay his bills. But the fact that he's being blacklisted, and he claims the reason he's not starring in sitcoms or having his movies shown at Sundance is because of his politics. That's just kind of hilarious. And I thought I'd mention it. What else is going on? House Oversight Committee releases handwritten evidence of Trump sedition. I bring this up because you may have seen the headline, but it's so weird in the times we live in. Every headline looks as big as the other headlines. It's hard to tell which ones are important and which ones aren't, because we have 35 headlines every single day in every single news cycle that gets the same sort of treatment. And I bring this up because I think this is one that requires a little bit more attention. If you haven't heard the story, the House Oversight Committee, reading now from, where am I? Let's see. Politicus USA. I don't know what this site is. Politicus. I don't know what that is. Anyway, it's all over the place. It's a reputable story. The House Oversight Committee has released handwritten notes from the acting Attorney General detailing Trump's insurrections to overturn the election. According to a release from the House Oversight Committee Chair, Representative Carolyn Maloney, as provided to Politicus USA about the handwritten notes that DOJ officials took about their meetings with Trump. The notes include the following exchange attributed to former President and Mr. Rosen, who was Deputy Attorney General, prior to his appointment as Acting Attorney General a few days before the call. You'll remember that William Barr left abruptly just weeks before the end of the administration. And this is one of those stories that only confirms what we already pretty much knew. But it's nice to have the proof. It's like, well, okay, there's nothing at all surprising about this. We know he was pressuring the Department of Justice to help him overturn the election. We know that's why Bill Barr left. These are things we all know already. But much of it was just in the category of duh. But it's nice to have proof. You can't just go to a judge and say, duh. It's obvious, duh. That's not a strategy for prosecution. It's not going to work for you. So even though this was obvious, it's really nice to have some evidence. So handwritten notes by Mr. Rosen. There's a local Milwaukee car dealer here named Rosen, and they do local commercials, and they're very funny, as local car commercials are. Anyway. Okay, so Rosen says, again, these are Rosen's notes of the conversation. Understand that the Department of Justice can't and won't snap its fingers and change the outcome of the election. Doesn't work that way. The Orange Menace says, don't expect you to do that. Just say that the election was corrupt. Leave the rest to me and the R congressman, Republican congressman. So, just so obvious, he was pressuring the Department of Justice to help him overturn the election illegally. Just like he was pressuring election officials in Georgia. I just need 11,000 votes, man. Come on. Yeah, this is the Orange Menace. How he is not in jail already, I don't know. Justice moves so very slowly. But this has just got to happen. The man just absolutely has to be prosecuted for the good of the country. This we just cannot allow. We cannot allow this. There's nothing over about it. There's no moving on from this. No, there's only justice. To quote-unquote move on just leaves it in the history books as, well, this guy got away with X, Y, and Z, and there's nothing whatsoever to stop the next guy. And believe me, there are plenty of next guys. There are dozens and dozens of would-be Orange Menaces out there. They all want to follow in his footsteps. They all want to cast themselves in that mold. And, well, one of them, a couple of them, have been in the news as well. Of course, we all know about Jim Jordan, this nut job Republican congressman who was nominated by Kevin McCarthy, or named by Kevin McCarthy, to be on the January 6th Select Committee. And of course, Nancy Pelosi did the right thing and rejected him because Jim Jordan himself is a co-conspirator. It's another prosecution, so we have to find the evidence and show it. And we will, or they will, listen to me. Yeah, I'm special consultant to the committee. They talk to me every day. What should we do next? And I tell him. Now, of course, Jim Jordan is going to be subpoenaed in all likelihood, as is Kevin McCarthy. Because Kevin McCarthy, as you will recall, spoke with the Orange Menace during the insurrection on January 6th, said, you got to call your people off. And the Orange Menace response was something like, well, I guess they care more about the country than you do. Now, forgive me for going over old news, but we can't just consider this over and done. This is not over and done until there is accountability. People have to go to jail. Well, Kevin McCarthy wasn't the only person to speak with the Orange Menace on January 6th. Apparently, Jim Jordan did also. He's admitted to it, and since then he kind of walks it back. He says, "Well, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember." Said he talked to him all the time, which I don't know. That's hard to believe, but I guess it's possible that somebody like Jim Jordan would have the attention of somebody like the Orange Menace, and they probably like talking to each other. The Orange Menace probably took his call every time. Oh yeah, good old Jim. Because he told him what he wanted to hear, blah, 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 you know all that. So, as much as, and I have in the past, I've kind of played down the Congressional Select Committee. Right now, it's all we got. I mean, obviously, we have the FBI. We have prosecutions of those who need to be prosecuted, the actual perpetrators. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. We really have to know, again, beyond we have to know what the Orange Menace did, what he said, the nature of these phone calls. So it looks very much like Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan are going to be subpoenaed. So, even though I've not been happy about the Congressional Select Committee, it's all we've got. So, yeah, go for it. Absolutely. I'm their biggest supporter now because they're the only game in town. We should have had a big old 9/11 style commission. We should have had something the size and the budget of that or of Mueller, a year or two. We'll see how long it goes. Just get everything. Subpoenas, indictments, prosecutions. It should be bigger than this, but it's not. Okay, so we have what we have. We have the Select Committee, the House of Representatives. Do what you need to do. And so Jim Jordan and Kevin McCarthy, sure to be subpoenaed. Love it if they subpoenaed the Orange Menace. We'll see where that goes. And of course, the reason Jim Jordan and who was the other one that McCarthy appointed? It was Jim Jordan and, Jim Banks. Jim Banks. Iowa, Ohio, I forget which. Yeah, guys who were like in on the planning. Again, the prosecution, but we can't rely on that. We have to get the evidence. There was a story, let's see if I can pull it up here. If I got it. Oh my gosh, yeah, here it is. Listen to this. Listen to this one. Former Oregon GOP representative pleads guilty to letting violent mob into state capitol. So this is in Oregon. Former Oregon Republican State Rep Mike Neerman has pleaded guilty to official misconduct after he let a violent far-right mob into the state capitol late last year. Neerman must now pay a $2,700 fine, perform 80 hours of community service, and is banned from entering the state capitol grounds for 18 months. The fine is meant to pay for damages done to the building. The Republican was expelled from office in June for allowing the mob into the state capitol. Now, the reason I bring this up, who among us with a straight face can say that there were no Republican representatives in Washington who did the exact same thing? Gave tours the day before the big insurrection. Told people where to go, where the offices were. They greased the wheels. They encouraged. They promoted. Who can honestly say, without their pants catching on fire, that at least some, and probably a good number, of Republican congressmen and women quite literally aided and abetted the insurrectionists of January 6th? Of course they did. Of course they did. Duh. I don't know how many. I don't know which ones exactly, although there's a pretty good list. We got Boebert, we got Green, we got Jim Jordan, Jim Banks. A couple of them spoke. Gosar, is that his name? A couple of them spoke at the rally beforehand, told him to go kick ass. Full culpability here. So I wish the committee luck and all the success in the world. And we have to have some resolution of this thing. People need to be booted out of Congress, booted out of the Senate, out of the House. People need to go to jail. People need to be fined. Consequences have to happen. And right at the very top, the Orange Menace. I'm not giving up on this. This is not a dream. I'm not giving up on this. This guy has to be behind bars. Guilty of treason, of sedition. These are punishable crimes. Let's leave politics for a minute. Interesting article on Vox.com this past week. Headline: Home ownership can bring out the worst in you. Let me read a little bit of this. Writer Jerusalem Demzis. Homeowner is an identity baked into the fabric of America. From political speeches to articles and advertising, Americans are bombarded with messaging valorizing homeownership. In 1995, President Bill Clinton released a 100-point plan to boost homeownership to an all-time high, writing that, quote, for millions of America's working families throughout our history, owning a home has come to symbolize the realization of the American dream. Yeah, that's always been the case for as long as I can remember, and no one, right, left, or center, questions it. Home ownership is supposed to be the goal. It's what you want. Everybody wants it, right, left, and center. It's not political. It's the American dream. It's what you do. But now comes researcher Rachel Bogardus-Drew to study something that for me has been self-evident. You buy a home, you change. That old thing about you have to be liberal when you're young or you don't have a heart. You become conservative when you're older or you don't have a brain. That little canard. That always pissed me off. But it's born from conditions that are true. Yeah, you get older, you have responsibilities, you buy a house, you have bills, you become more individualistic, worried about your own behind. And yeah, it makes a lot of people a little more conservative, a little more right-wing, whether they want to admit it or not. They certainly may think they're liberals and maybe they vote for Democrats. Oh, I'm such a liberal because I vote for Democrats. But generally, they're more centrist than anything else. And on the global scale, which we talk about here all the time, they're pretty right-wing, actually. When you look at the actual political spectrum and the possibilities between left and right and the extremes and the middles, and yeah, these self-proclaimed liberals are damned conservative. They just either don't know it or don't want to admit it. Okay, researcher Rachel Bogardus-Drew points to more than a century's worth of messages praising the benefits of home ownership. Everything from personal freedom and self-determination, social equality and inclusion, personal and economic success, and a better quality of life. All those wonderful things. But, the researcher points out, home ownership, as it has evolved in the United States, often turns its beneficiaries against progress and change, manifesting as anything from opposing homeless shelters in your neighborhood to blocking transit projects in your region. This identity transcends partisanship, a rarity in our polarized age. You'll find Democrats and Republicans alike screaming opposition to change and growth, no matter what it costs. To that end, Republicans have supported onerous regulations they would likely scoff at in the abstract, and Democrats have defended a system that has perpetuated the racial and economic segregation they often rail against in theory. One credible analysis found that the United States was short 3.8 million homes as of the fourth quarter of 2020, leaving millions of Americans overcrowded in their current living situations. paying increasingly high rents and unable to find a starter home to break into the ownership game. So they're making the point here that scarcity plays into this mindset. And as we always say around here, you know it's true, say it with me, scarcity is a lie. It's a myth. There's no scarcity of houses, of homes. No. For every houseless person, there are at least 3 vacancies. Vacancies outnumber the houseless 3-to-1. There's no scarcity problem. There's a capitalism problem. In a newsletter, I'm reading again, in a newsletter titled America's Scarcity Mindset, economist Noah Smith described the political effect of what happens when people are forced to live under scarcity. Survival values, which supposedly come about because of economic scarcity, include ethnocentrism, xenophobia, fear of disease, and a hunger for authoritarianism. Sounds a lot like Trumpism. But I think you can also see echoes of this in various leftist ideologies and spaces. That's quoting the economist Noah Smith. So, yeah, the headline caught my eye, and the article's not bad. Several experts quoted. But the bottom line, yeah, the very idea of home ownership is, by its nature, political. Because you've entered into this world. Now, I got to say, I've never owned a home. I've never wanted to own a home. Kind of for these reasons. I had personal reasons as well. I didn't want to get tied to a home. The whole idea that your possessions possess you and not the other way around. That's always been my general philosophy in life. I want few possessions. And to own a home just seems like, to me, buying a home is like buying a prison. I couldn't imagine it personally. But I also had these political notions. And maybe they were subconscious at first. Maybe I didn't have them fleshed out, and I still don't, at least to a full extent. But I did have this sort of nagging feeling. Yeah, home ownership, it does. It deals with the world of scarcity, which doesn't exist. It's forced, false scarcity. And it sort of changes people. It becomes the I got mine party. I got mine. And however I vote, whatever I do, how I live my life, is all based on keeping what I've got, which is generally pretty right-wing, pretty conservative. I mean, I've always been a huge believer in aligning your values with your life. And just as an observer, it's kind of clear that most of us don't do that. What you believe deep in your heart, your own personal philosophy on how the world ought to work regarding fairness and justice and equity and all of that. What you believe in your mind and in your heart. As opposed to how you vote. Do they align? Well, no. As I was shouting all through the 2016 and 2020 primaries, most Democratic voters favored Bernie Sanders' policies. The polls were clear. Of all the candidates, and then it got down to, of course, Bernie versus Hillary and then Bernie versus Joe. Every single poll told us the same thing. Trustworthiness, they like Bernie. Personality, they like Bernie. Ideas, they like Bernie. Policies, they like Bernie. Everything about Bernie, all the policies. Is he a good person? Does he worry about me? Is he trustworthy? And most importantly, the policies themselves. Bernie won all the polls. And yet those very same people told the pollsters, well, but I'm going to vote for Joe. And then they had all these reasons, and we yelled about it at the time, most of them very kind of strategic and political. Well, we're not sure Bernie can win, blah, 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 blah. So what we believe and how we vote don't always match up. In fact, they almost never do. And then, even more importantly, not only how you vote, but how you live. The decisions you make, the big decisions and the small decisions, every day when you go out. What do you drive? Do you drive? Do you take public transit? What kind of job do you have? Do you have a choice? Could you have another job? Is it something that really serves, or is it something that just gets you the money that you need? Is it one of those garbage jobs that nobody needs, that just helps to pollute the earth and blah, blah, blah? We all know. You can be a nurse and a doctor, you can be a teacher, there are lots of noble professions. You can be an artist, you can be a musician, things that bring good to the world, that serve others. And then there are those other jobs, the entire financial industry, people who make high-end luxury yachts. You could name 1,000 jobs and industries that aren't doing anybody any damn good. You know my personal history. I've dabbled in both the visual art and media arts and music and theater. I've kind of been this generalist. But for a while there, I was trying to find work in visual art, and I got a job with a guy. He did like an interior decorating. And he would paint the stone in rich people's houses to make it look like expensive marble. That was kind of his specialty. So it's not really rich people, just mostly rich, but they can't afford huge walls of marble. So they would hire this guy to go in and paint their stone to make it look just like marble. And I just happened upon this guy. I don't know. I met him at a party or something. And we got to talking. Oh, you're an artist. Well, maybe you could help me. I could train you to do this. And I spent some time doing it. And while I did it, my heart just sunk to the ground. I was never more depressed in my life. And I was making pretty good money. That was one of the better, really the better paying jobs I had. Oh my God, what am I doing? This is just horrible. I'm decorating this quasi-rich person's house to make them feel richer. How am I contributing anything at all to the world? How is this a job that anybody should be doing? I had the same experience as a musician when I get hired to play private parties in these big old McMansions out in the suburbs. And I just felt dirtied by the whole thing. So I found myself in these situations. And I think there are people who get up every damn day. The alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and they trudge off to their job. And they know damn well they're doing jobs that don't matter, that might very well be doing more harm than good, harm to us, harm to the planet. But I've come to this because of the house story, the home ownership story, aligning our values with not only the way we vote, but the way we live, which includes everything, the way we work, how we consume, all of it. I don't think we're lined up. I think we're out of alignment. And it's killing the planet. It's killing ourselves slowly because deep down in our hearts, we know it. We can't be happy. We can't be content. We can sort of fill this unease with movies and entertainment and consumer goods, which is what we do. So I say screw home ownership. After the revolution, it'll be a very different model. All right, well, let's think about that. And I'll dream tonight of life after the revolution. I'll have happy dreams. All right, let's call it a day. That's the log. I love you. I'm Charles Purcell.